We're always being told to turn off lights and appliances that aren't being used. But that's only part of the story. What they don't tell you is that the rate that you're charged for electricity is determined by where you live. And as David Richardson reports, it's the well-to-do suburbs often getting the best deal.
It's just turned 6 p.m. and for pensioner Ravella Lewis, it's time to turn everything off.
I go to bed early. I go to bed early to save money on the power.
The 72-year-old is forced to go without heating and lighting because she can't afford the electricity hikes. She's taking drastic steps.
I just have to keep on the way I'm keeping on, and if fixed expenses go up, then I just have to cut down on food.
Power and gas bills are now the highest recurring bill in this country after mortgage repayments. And it's not just how much you use, where you live can determine what you pay.
Consumers are being charged for electricity and gas according to postcode. The differences can be hundreds of dollars per annum within the same city in the same state.
CEO of Go Switch, Ben Freund, looked at average power use across the board to find the winners and the losers when it comes to electricity bills. And people just meters apart can have massively different bills.
You do get absurd situations where direct neighbours are paying different prices, and that does happen.
In New South Wales, there are 3 distribution areas or zones. The inner Sydney area, Sydney's west and surrounds down to the south coast, and all of regional New South Wales, not counting the ACT. While in Victoria, there are 5 zones: the west of the state, the east of the state, the inner city of Melbourne, the southeast of that city, and the west of Melbourne. In Queensland, there are 2 zones, one containing the major population centres of Brisbane, Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast, the rest powered by Ergon Energy. And where these zones cross or meet, prices can vary enormously.
Some of those boundaries will divide postcodes, so there will be some postcodes where somebody on one side of the street will have access to different pricing than someone on the other side of the street.
Christopher Zinn from One Big Switch says most city folk pay far less than our country cousins.
Because the cost of distributing the electricity, the poles and wires, which actually makes up 40 or 50% of your electricity bill, is higher.
But even inside these zones, there are massive differences, and the winners seem to be our wealthier suburbs. Take a look at this breakdown. In New South Wales, our ritziest suburbs are doing very nicely. Point Piper, Manly, amongst the cheapest. Also Bankstown and the Hills District. But go to the northwest of the state, and Brookfield, Blandford and Armidale are some of the dearest places to buy power. It's also very pronounced in Melbourne, where suburbs like Toorak and neighbouring South Yarra through to St Kilda, Brighton and Frankston are some of the cheapest suburbs. The dearest for power, Lalor, Lilydale, Knoxfield, Footscray and Coburg. Queensland has one rate across the state by law, but some cheaper postcodes are all in the metro zone: Brisbane, Surfers Paradise, Hamilton, Maroochydore and the Sunshine Coast. The standard rates for the rest of Queensland are the same, but depend on retailer discounts. Our experts have found some of the slightly more expensive areas include Birdsville, Cairns, Port Douglas, Townsville and Rockhampton. But there's not much difference.
A home with a standard consumption in a lower income suburb like Lilydale or Lalor will pay $467 more than a home with the same consumption in Toorak, the most expensive suburb in Melbourne.
Unfortunately, while electricity should be something that's all about the future, a lot of the way the pricing works in terms of these distribution zones all goes back to the past and how it used to be. And let's hope that as reform flows through the system, we can get some real up-to-date common sense.
In an ideal world, electricity would be charged the same right across the country. In some states, governments will pay hefty subsidies to rural areas to keep the prices artificially down. In suburbs where 2 price zones collide, some people may even move house to save money.
In some cases, consumers might only need to move 100 metres or so and see a very real drop in their cost of electricity. And it might not be a big move. It could even be, in some cases, just the other side of the street.
which is exactly what we found 2 years ago around Canberra. Less than 600 metres separate two families, but their bills were $1,000 apart. The Dove family, an average family of four, Dad Gary battling quarterly bills going through the roof.
So we're 5 times more expensive, 600 metres away. Infuriating, isn't it?
So effectively the difference is almost $2 a metre.
Yeah.
Can you understand that?
Not at all.
Just a few hundred metres away, the Lees, with power bills a mere fraction of the Doves.
We've been averaging about $150 to $250 a quarter.
And most Australians can't understand these massive differences.
It needs to be simpler, it needs to be more straightforward. People don't understand it. We think that there can be greater reforms and help. Some of that is coming.
After decades with these old wires and poles, electricity is about to be hit with a massive shake-up, and households are set to benefit.
The whole digital revolution that's happening throughout our lives is coming to electricity in terms of the metering, in terms of the devices we can look at, tell us how much we're using. Once we can get actually into the 21st century with electricity and metering and billing, I think that'll make a huge difference.
Until these updates come into effect across the country, though, there's still just one way to win and maximise your savings.
If consumers do use their power and they switch to the cheapest plan in their postcode, that can be a great leveller, and that can actually reduce the discrepancy quite a bit.
David Richardson reporting there.